All right, Matt, thank you for taking my call. So could you start by just telling us a little bit about yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Well, right now I've retired from my first business, which was in the health and fitness industry, personal training studios. We had a franchise business for 20 years that did 1 million in sales and had 12 franchises. Sorry, 100 million in sales over 20 years and had 12 franchises. Now I am a consultant to sport organizations, so I've been hired by the PGA of America to help build their player development strategy, and I consult sport organizations at the local, provincial, and national levels in both Canada and the United States.
Interesting. So yeah, just focusing a little bit more about innovative sports, which is your chain of gyms. Could you just kind of give us like a little bit of a run through of how you were able to start it and how you were able to grow it to become like a multi-chain corporation?
Yeah, well, when we were in university, we kind of had two tracks. One was the education track, and then the other one was the entrepreneurial track. We didn't have a lot of experience in business. So everything that we learned by doing the hard way, unfortunately for us. But nothing that's hard isn't worthwhile in the long term. We basically came out of business and saw that there was a gap in the industry, and I think that's important when you're coming out and deciding what you want to do. It's a combination of a couple things. Number one, what's your purpose? If you're lucky enough to figure out what your purpose is, what were you put on the earth to do, which is tough at a young age, you're going to find something that's really good for you. Number two, what are you passionate about? What gets you fired up? Because if you're going to embark in a long-term journey, you're going to want to make sure that you're not just punching in and punching out. And then number three, what are you good at? You can't, it's tough to be successful in a career and in a job that you're passionate about, but you're not good at. It's tough to be in a career and job that you're good at, but you're not passionate about. And if you can land somewhere in that purpose, passion, and skill set triangle, you're gonna have a really good experience. You're not gonna bounce from thing to thing looking for the next best thing. So when we came out of university, we were good at helping people and motivating people and coaching people. We were passionate about helping them get results and health and fitness and sports. And our purpose was to really be coaches and be teachers, and we wanted to do that outside of the academic construct because it can be fairly confining. You have to operate often inside the parameters that are set out. But in an entrepreneurial space and when you're in your own startup, you've got carte blanche. You can make as many mistakes as you want, and you'll sink or swim, which is why only 50% of businesses make it to 5 years, and of those that make it to 5 years, only 50% of those make it to 10.
Yeah, no, that was super insightful. So just when you were pursuing your gym, was there a particular mission or vision that you had? So say for example, was there a particular type of consumer that you were trying to satisfy for a pain point? So in the fitness industry, were you looking to target those that were already in the industry and looking to improve themselves as a high performance athlete? Or were you looking to target people that, maybe had not worked out before and are looking to get into the fitness industry and become a better version of themselves?
Yeah, good question. So our target market was the higher end of the socioeconomic demographic. This was by appointment only, so and the footprints were only 5,000 square feet. So really, we were looking for that business person or person who wanted to invest in themselves and take it seriously. I mean, annually, the cost to come to us would be somewhere between $10,000 and $20,000 plus the discretionary spends if you were buying. It was a very niche market and a very targeted market. We weren't the big box gyms that typically try to get people in to sign up, multi-year memberships and then not show up. So it was very specific to that. And in terms of who in that market, what they were looking for, we drilled down the numbers. So 3% came to delay their onset of aging. And so it was very important for them to stay healthy and fit so that they didn't have disease or all that stuff that comes with aging. 3% came to take their athletic prowess to the next level, whether it was an Ironman training, or whether it was marathon training, or whether it was elite sport athletes in hockey or football or basketball. And then the rest came really because they wanted to improve their self-esteem. Because really, when you make that investment in your physical sphere, you're also making that investment in the intellectual, emotional, social, and spiritual sphere. So that was really our differentiating factor. Was people didn't walk in and say, I'm here because I have low self-esteem. They walked in because they heard what their friends or colleagues or neighbors were doing and had done through our program, and they wanted to be a part of that magic as well.
So focusing a little bit more about the client and the customer relationship, would you say that was a little bit more, was that your value proposition? Was that where you tried to differentiate yourself from other competitors in that niche market?
I think the value proposition, the X factor for us was, yeah, it was very, very consumer centric, customer centric. We didn't call them clients; they were clients, but basically, we asked our customer, "What have you always wanted to do from a health and fitness perspective that you don't think you're able to do, or that you haven't prioritized?" And then once they gave us that answer, the wheels would be set in motion. So a lot of people would say, well, I haven't run in 10 years, or I've always wanted to try a marathon or Ironman. So we would do that, and we would train them in that. And what was happening in the gym would translate to results that were outside of the gym. So for example, each year for 10 years, we took 75 people a year to hike Machu Picchu. We took 150 people to the top of Kilimanjaro. We ran across the Sahara Desert. We hiked Iceland. We hiked the Great Wall of China. We rode across Australia. We rode across Canada. We did a lot of things that were big to small, local, getting outside and doing things that you didn't think you could do or that you've always wanted to try, whether it was hiking, biking, taking strokes off your golf swing. When we say, and you mentioned consumer centric, it really was consumer centric. So this wasn't about, losing 10 pounds or getting a bigger chest or biceps. This was about, creating life-changing experiences, because when you do that, your attention just goes through the roof, because then it's always coming back and going, well, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do next? What are we going to do next?
Yeah, that's a very strong value proposition. So just kind of focusing a little bit more on the entrepreneurial space. You were talking about the fact that by being an entrepreneur, you have the creative freedom to kind of follow your own path. Could you talk about maybe an instance where you tried to follow a path and then you made a mistake, but you were able to kind of learn from that mistake and pivot and ultimately become better?
Yeah, we don't have enough time on this call to talk about the amount of mistakes we made, but that's ultimately part of being an entrepreneur. You learn from those mistakes. You can, nothing is going to prepare you. No book smarts, no teacher, no academic construct is going to prepare you for what's going to happen in the real world, because it's dynamic, and every single consumer that you come across is going to be different. So yeah, we had a relationship business that was contingent on us leveling up new graduates as training coaches to then work with some of the most high functioning, high profile, high achieving people in communities. There's always going to be breakdowns in that dynamic. Having young people understand it's not all about them. As a matter of fact, it's nothing about them. Having young people understand that once they graduate and get into the workforce, that's not the finish line, that's the start line. You've been given a set of tools, and now you actually have to apply those tools over the next course of the 10 to 20 years of your life. Having young people understand that a lot of the things that they're taught and how the world revolves around themselves isn't necessarily true and translatable, and there's no parents to come and pick you up anymore, and you're going to get real feedback. So yeah, there's a lot of different nuances that happen in the real world, and you learn through those, we'll call them growing pains, and coming out the other side.
Yeah, that's a very valid point. So I also saw that you were involved in some philanthropy and you also had the opportunity to perform a couple of TED Talks. Could you kind of expand upon that and just talk about what motivated you to pursue that sector and do those TED Talks?
Yeah, well, we were very community based. You can do two things when you're an entrepreneur. You can put up your vision and mission on the wall and forget it exists, or you can put your vision and mission on the wall and live it every day. And we chose the latter. So for us, it was about, if we were taking from the community and being in these communities, and we wanted to give back to these communities. So through the generosity of the consumers and the trainers and our peers and our staff and ourselves, we managed to give back over $6 million to various community charities over that 20 years. And a lot of the initiatives that we put in place are still going to this day, which one of our core values was legacy. We wanted to leave the community in a better place than we found it. So it's an important thing to do for your business. It can be a very good and strategic differentiator if you want it to be. It can be just the right thing to do if you want it to be. It can be what sets you apart from your competitors as well. So a lot of that, the TED Talks that you mentioned, and a lot of the work that we've done in schools, that we've done in sports, have come from being in the communities and seeing gaps that exist there, and having those different organizations and leadership come to us and say, hey, listen, you've done such a good job over here. Can you help us with X, Y, or Z? So we've done a lot of charitable endeavors for education, the education sector. Giving the TED Talks is just another point of contact. As in order to make any sale in any business, especially in a relationship business, it's going to require between 6 and 20 points of contact. You're not just going to walk in and sell a product, a widget, a concept, a mantra, or an ethos by walking in and saying, hey, buy this, and have people go, okay. They usually need to hear about it. They need to see it. I use the iPhone as an example. Nobody thought it was a wicked idea to go spend, $1,000 on a device, but your kid comes home and says, hey, all your music's in one spot. Hey, you can upload your pictures. You watch the Steve Jobs movie. You see an advertisement while you're watching the Super Bowl for Apple. You have a big launch. You're driving by a bus stop and there's an advertisement there. It's between 6 and 20 points of contact, even subliminally, that you then make that decision to buy that product. And it's no different in the service business. It's no different in any business. So we need to do, and you need to do the best you can as an entrepreneur to say the same thing in as many different ways as possible to appeal to your target market as often as possible. And that's what really helps you keep you ahead of the competition.
Yeah, that was very, very insightful. So could you just talk about how you were able to exit from Innovative Fitness and kind of what your motivation behind exiting that industry was?
Yeah, the sports industry was coming calling. So, the same things that we saw in the personal training industry, which initially was all about the celebrity trainer, the girl or guy with the six pack, and all about them, we started to see in sports. It was about the celebrity kid with their celebrity parent and the celebrity clubs. And there was no infrastructure. So coming from a franchise business, you've got the franchisor, general manager, and then your franchisees. Each of those groups has two primary responsibilities. Franchisor, get as many eyeballs to the business as possible, press, PR, events, etc. Number one. Number two, create the operating system that makes it as easy as possible for the franchisees to have success, whatever their definition of success is. Is it scale, sales, community, legacy, whatever that is, you need to find it out and you need to support that. Then you've got a general manager, and his or her responsibility is to, number one, make sure that any problems, initiatives, ideas are vetted that come from the franchisees and handled. Number one. And then number two, make sure the franchisees are operating in compliance with that operating system that the franchisor has created. Then you got the franchisees, most important part of your business. They're selling the product or service to making it as appealing as possible to as many as possible in their community. Number one. And then the second response, that operating system. So I've said operating system 3 times. And when we came to the sports sector, what we realized is nobody in sport at the top level, a national sport organization, International Olympic Committee, FIFA, or anybody, has created the operating system that makes it easy and simple for the local community clubs to have success. So what you get in the local community clubs is the volunteer, God bless them, parent who comes in and says, I'm going to run this usually because I want to further my own kids' interest, not for the benefit of the greater community. And they may or may not have a business acumen or skill set. So they may or may not know a thing about the key tenets of business, culture, stakeholder journey mapping, marketing and communication, sales, and finance. They may or may not have any insight to those things. So what we did is we transitioned what we learned from the bricks and mortar fitness business into the sport business. So your question was, can we talk about that transition? Essentially, we realized another gap, and youth sport and amateur sport is even a bigger gap and a bigger opportunity. So that's when we knew it was time to exit the bricks and mortar and get into that and tackle that as well. And you can't do both. So we were able to sell to our first and our original franchisor. So it kept that continuity and consistency in our product and service. And we were able to get into a completely new market and new sector, and one that's, in Canada, $8 billion a year, and in the United States, $19 billion a year.
Okay, let's let's focus a little bit more about your pivot. So there is opportunity in that space, but it is still it's still a quite a wide space, because kids start playing sports from the ages of 6 to 18, 19. Is there a particular age group or skill group that you see has the most opportunity?
Yeah, it's the one that nobody wants to. It's the one that's the least sexiest. It's the development level. It's everyone wants to be around the elite athletes. Everyone wants to hobnob with the Canadian champion or NHL player and wear the lanyard and show up, but nobody really wants to really support and elevate the wide end of the development funnel, and that is the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That is the amateur sport level. We have this infatuation with elite, and we want to be around the elite, which is fine. They do need support. They do need, to be focused on, but not at the detriment or not to the exclusion of the development level.
So if an organization were to, or if you were to go about implementing your strategy into an organization, would you go about approaching, like, say, for example, you're trying to do it with North Van Minor Hockey Association. Would you go about talking to the head, or would you try to meet with each individual team? What end do you think it'd be easier for you to be integrated amongst the whole association?
It's a great question. And what we've found from our time in this sector is that it's an and. So you go from the top down and the bottom up. That's where you're going to get the most amount of impact. If you just go from one area, then what you risk if you go from the bottom up is, ostracizing yourself. Oh, here's a whole bunch of overzealous parents that just want to meddle. If you go from the top down, then you're beholden to the one person that's at the top who may think that you're a threat, may think that it's a threat to their ego, it's a threat to their skill set, may just not be interested or shut you out.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes a lot of sense. So just to kind of reiterate on the philanthropy point, you said that you've done a bunch of initiatives in the past. Going forward, is philanthropy something you'd like to keep up with you? And do you have any other philanthropic endeavors that you'd like to pursue?
That comes down to each individual's personal driver and their own motivations. For me, yes, I do believe that it's an ecosystem. We live in an ecosystem. You need to give back and feed that ecosystem. From a business standpoint, I just think it's good business. It's smart business. It's kind of what's expected now. Nobody likes a business that comes in and just takes. People gravitate towards businesses that are giving back, that have a good ethos and don't mind. They've got to focus on giving back and supporting the community. Going forward, my personal goal is to help facilitate over $10 million to charity. $6.5 million, and so I haven't got that far to go, and that is my goal, because I think it's important.
That's great. That's a great goal to have as well. So me personally, for many entrepreneurs, I feel like they may be disencouraged from pursuing the career because they may not think that they have all the business acumen to develop their own business and to deal with the financials and the accounting. How would you do you have any comments on how young entrepreneurs can feel more motivated to pursue their own companies, even though they may not have the correct education or the financial acumen?
Yeah, being an entrepreneur is not for everybody. Despite what everyone's saying, be your own boss, have your own job. It's not for everybody. If you don't have strength, if you can't take feedback, if you don't have thick skin, if you can't get up 11 times when you've been punched in the face 10, um, entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur is probably not for you. So let's just be really honest with that at the outset. It's everyone thinks that they can be their own boss, but it's one thing to manage yourself. It's a completely different proposition when you have to manage others, because nobody's the same. There's no cookie cutter kind of formula that you follow in managing people. Joan may be different from Jenny, maybe different from Johnny, maybe different from Jack. And any given day, you don't know what you're getting. So it's definitely something that you need to think about. I don't say that to discourage people. I just say that to be really realistic. And people usually find out there's a reason why less than 5 businesses, 50% of the businesses make it to 5 years, and less than 50% of those make it to 10. There's a reason for that. And it usually becomes because somebody has turned their passion and excitement has turned into a nightmare. Or they're lacking in one of those areas that we described. So having said that, I think that now in 2022 is a great time to be an entrepreneur, because the world is changing so quickly. And, with that change comes opportunities and comes gaps. And, there's a lot of savvy young people, particularly with computers and technology, that are going to see those gaps and they're going to plug those gaps. And along the way, they're going to learn all of the things that every entrepreneur and business owner has: winning, losing, success, failure, feedback, all of those things that everyone always learns. You're going to learn in that setting.
Yeah, that's very wise. So just kind of focusing on the point that 50% of entrepreneurs don't make it past 5 years. Just seeing as you've had success in your entrepreneurial endeavors and you were able to scale your business on multiple levels, can you kind of talk about your business plan and how you were able to scale your gym franchise from 1 gym to 12 gyms?
Yeah, it's all about investing in others. So it becomes not about yourself. It's not Matt Young Fitness. It's not, has nothing to do with me. It's how can I help elevate others? Because the more I can help elevate others, the greater I can scale. So we couldn't scale without trainers and coaches if we didn't invest in our trainers and coaches and invest in our people. If you don't invest in the people, you're going to suffer in the product. You're going to have a cap or a limit to how high you can go. But if you continually invest in the people and make them the best, our only thing was to make sure that people left our organization better than they came. That was our only mission statement that anchored every one-on-one meeting, every team huddle in the morning. It anchored everything that we did. And when you have that kind of an attitude, you're going to have people that want to go the distance for you and appreciate what you're doing for them. This wasn't about us getting ours, for us, and I'm taking this clip off you. This was about how can we help you in your personal and professional development so that you leave here either in this industry or outside of this industry better than you showed up.
Yeah, no, I feel like that's really important to focus on your actual product and the service that you're delivering instead of just chasing profits. Because that's ultimately what separates the good companies from the great companies.
Absolutely.
Well, Matt, I appreciate you for your time. It's been super insightful.
No problem. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Sean.
See ya.